Welcome back to Perkins Pipes. I don't bring this guy out nearly enough. This little straight apple that I made, part smooth, part rusticated, got a bit of a red marble stem. I deliberately made this as a Christmas pipe to enjoy during the month of December, and because of that, I really don't get this guy out nearly enough, although I do enjoy him. So, that's why I brought him out today. What are we talking about? Well, we got to get this guy lit first, and then get to talking. I have shared that for some time I've been reading, here we go, Maynard Mack's biography of Alexander Pope, my favorite poet. And I want to share with you something that Pope wrote to a friend about their mutual friend, Jonathan Swift. Now, you may know Jonathan Swift. You may think of him with Gulliver's Travels. All right, so it's that Jonathan Swift. And in 1737, he wrote a letter to a friend about Jonathan Swift. And this is what he said. It's just one sentence, but I want to spend a little time talking about it today. He says, of Swift, his humanity, his charity, his condescension, his candor, are equal to his wit, and require as good and true a taste to be equally valued. Now, several things to say about this. First of all, I'd love to have that said about me. There's some wonderful things there, and we're going to take each of those terms apart. And then there's what he says at the end that is also quite striking. So he talks about Swift, and he says his humanity, his charity, his condescension, his candor are equal to his wit. So everybody knew that Swift was quite the wit in terms of not just being witty, but also his delightful ways of turning a phrase. He was brilliant. Many facets to Jonathan Swift's life that we're not going to get all into in this episode. But so everybody knew that about him. What Pope says to his friend is, you know what? As high as everybody knows his wit to be, just as high is his humanity. What a wonderful thing to say. What are you known for? What am I known for? Well, I don't know. I suppose I'm known as a teacher. That's ridiculous. I know. I'm known as a teacher. I'm known as a writer, speaker, and all these kinds of things. Would anybody say of me that my humanity ranked on the same level? Would they say that of you? What are some of your chief traits? Chief things that you're able to do well, perform? Would they say that your humanity ranked as high? Along with that is his charity. Now, the Pope is still using the term charity there in the older sense. If you're familiar with the King James translation of the Bible, you think about 1 Corinthians chapter 17, now abideth faith, hope, and charity, these three, but the greatest of these is charity. Well, charity isn't just giving to the poor. That's kind of the connotation today. Charity is simply the anglicized version of the Latin word caritas, C-A-R-I-T-A-S, which is really just another form of a word for love. So he says, Swift's love for people is right on the same level with that brilliant mind of his. Would people say that about you? Would people say that about me? That our charity, our love for other people was as high as our other skills. Then he says his condescension. Now that has a bad connotation today for somebody to be condescending. Not so. Not so. The root of condescension, of course, think like the word descend, right? Just means to come down. And you say, well, that's kind of arrogant, right? You got to condescend to be with me. Consider the love of God, that he condescended to become a human being. That wasn't God looking down on us. It wasn't God despising us. In fact, it was the exact opposite. God values us so much that he condescended, that he came to become one of us. Christ gave up all of the glories of heaven to become one of us. And it's in that sense that he says, that's Swift. Right? He never thought he was so great. For all of his wit, for all of his authorial honors, his being recognized as an author. He says, Swift had no problem being one with other people. Right? He didn't consider himself above other people. He didn't consider himself better than other people. That's what condescension means in this sense. And again, the question for you, for me, would anyone say that our condescension was as great as our other talents? Do we even strive? Is that even anything that you and I strive for? I wonder. Sometimes I'm not sure that I do, or that I do enough. Am I thinking too much about me? Am I thinking too much about my own accolades? And, whether it's, Billy Joel sang in Allentown, our graduations hang on the wall. Am I thinking about my degrees and awards and so forth? Or people say, you know what, that Steve Perkins guy, boy, he's really humane. He really loves people. He condescends. He has no problem being with everybody, no matter what kind of education they've got, or rich or poor or talented or whatever. Well, that's what Pope thought about Swift. And his candor. All right, so that's the last of the attributes. He says his candor. Are you known for your candor? Am I? Now, I think we got to be careful with that, especially in today's age. I think everybody thinks, oh, I've got a right to speak whatever's on my mind, and I can say it whenever and wherever, and no matter how it hurts other people, no matter how rude you might think it is, I got to speak the truth. Or the way you hear it, I got to speak my truth. We've talked about that before. That nonsense phrase, my truth, right? There is truth. It's not the private possession of anybody. But at the same time, do we have that sort of candor that states what is true, whether it's to compliment somebody or to point out where somebody is in error? Right? Candor, you think about that word, C-A-N-D-O-R. It's related to the word candle. It comes from the Latin word which means to glow, to shine. Or are we always weighing our words, being careful? Well, I don't want to offend anybody. I don't want to offend the boss. I don't want to offend aunt or uncle or cousins at the family get-together. And so I'll just kind of keep mum on certain issues that I know are really important. So, humanity, charity, condescension, candor, he says, all equal to his wit. But then he adds this line. Pope says, and they require as good and true a taste to be equally valued. Now think about that. It requires a certain humanity to value the humanity in others. It requires a certain charity to recognize and value the love that other people have for other people. It requires that condescension, that not being above other people, but it requires that to respect that and value that in others. And it requires candor to recognize and value candor in other people. And it's an interesting thing about the virtues. The more you practice them, there's a real cycle, right? Let's just take one. Take the first one there, humanity. Right? The more humane I am, it allows me to spot the humanity in others and be inspired by it and turn around and bless them when I acknowledge them for their humanity. Same thing for love and all the others. The interesting thing about the virtues, they just feed off of each other and they grow as we practice them and allow us to see them in other people. So I thought it was a wonderful line, just one sentence from 1737 in a letter. What do you think about that? What do you think about those virtues? Humanity, charity, condescension, and candor. Are those things you strive for in any way? Are they virtues that you practice and strive to develop? Are they virtues that you spot in other people? Who are some of those people in whom you see such virtues? Would you ever write a letter to a friend about another friend, a mutual friend, and say, you know that person, boy, don't you just love her humanity? Brilliant businesswoman, but boy, I tell you what, her candor, it just shines like a light. Would you ever say that about anybody else? Who are those people? Would love to hear your thoughts about all of this, the virtues and the fact that it really requires having those virtues to recognize those in other people and who those people are for you. As Malcolm Guite likes to say, I do these little things in order at last to do nothing. Or as I like to say in Latin, Parva ago ut tandem, nihil agam. Have a wonderful day.